165. Let's get to the new film Imaginary, directed by Jeff Wadlow, stars DeWanda Wise, Tegan Burns, Piper Braun, Betty Buckley, a few others. And the synopsis is a woman returns to her childhood home to discover that the imaginary friend she left behind is very real and unhappy that she abandoned him. So, this director also did Truth or Dare, Fantasy Island, so mostly a Blumhouse horror director. And when I heard about this one, didn't know much about it at all, except that it was a possessed teddy bear of sorts, but didn't get around to seeing it until just recently on demand. Heard really bad things about it, so didn't really go in with high hopes. And I definitely don't have an issue with mediocre, average Blumhouse-esque films. Like, I'm kind of a sucker for these movies, and even if they're supposed to be horrible, I usually give them a chance. However, with all that being said, this is easily one of the worst films of the year for me, and one of the worst horror films especially. The first 30, 40 minutes, I was actually sort of engaged. It was pretty generic, but I was like, this isn't that bad. But for one thing, this movie, it should have been 80 minutes at most. Like, the third act, I thought it went on and on and on. Like, I appreciated it at the beginning for trying to do more with the concept of this possessed teddy bear. But the more that it tried to explain the backstory of this ghost demon and the history with the main character and this older woman, it just got goofier and goofier. The more it explained itself, the stupider it felt, instead of being more, here, we know that this is a stupid concept, just go with it. It's, here, we need to explain everything. And I appreciate them trying, but to me, they crashed and burned with it. And not only did it just not work from a storytelling perspective, but I could not tell you what happened in that last 30 minutes in terms of the connections and the logic of everything. Not that it needs to make sense realistically, but I cannot tell you what tied to what, why they were there, why the teddy bear was angry and then okay, and then, blah, blah, blah. I just was completely lost. So it really wore out its welcome long before it ended, and I could not wait for it to be over. Which, I hate to be so mean, but I was actually like, hey, maybe I'll be a defender of this movie. That's typically how it goes with me, but couldn't really do that, unfortunately. Otherwise, the performances are fine. I think the main actress is pretty decent. The young girl was all right. Oh, and also, one quick thing. I'm really, I don't mind a horror film like this being fairly uninspired. Like, I don't really care if it just takes a familiar concept and just goes with it. Like, that's fine. But I'm getting so tired of this trend with horror films of all kinds where it's, I guess you could say it's inspired by things like Chucky and other things, where someone goes back to a childhood home or they move into a new house and then there's something wrong with the house. There's a possessed object or a certain room that's haunted and things go wrong. And I'm getting really bored of that. It's just, there's only so much you can do with it. And this movie really shows its hand right from the get-go. And it's like, all right, here, this is my childhood home. And this happened when I was a kid. And it doesn't work. And I guess the only other thing I'll mention that it didn't really help the movie, but I thought it was at least somewhat different, was that alternative underworld secret space that they go to. I thought that was an attempt to do something different, but was much too extended and jumbled to really be that memorable or impactful. Really would not recommend it. Thought it was truly awful. Not one I will ever feel the need to go back to in any way. Definitely one of Blumhouse's worst as of late. Oh, and sorry, before I wrap up, you need to, if you're going to make a movie called Imaginary, you need to make sure that this movie has imagination to it. And this one does not at all. Like, should not name something if you know it's not going to have that much of a weight to it. Like, for example, the one I always think about is Jack Reacher Never Go Back, the sequel to the Jack Reacher film, where it was terrible. And then the constant tagline for reviews was, please never go back. Yep, let's never go back. That was a correct title for this movie. Like, you need to either change the title or elevate your work so you're not making it too easy for critics to trash it, because with the title Imaginary, they definitely walked right into it with the end product. Yeah, that is a light 1.5 out of 5.